Well, today I'd like to just take a special time to welcome everyone for joining us for this Golden Key Talk about the future of work. This has been, if you are watching a recording of this talk, this has been a really uncertain time in our world with COVID-19 impacting 2020 and is really focusing, we're really asking all of us, be it as employees, employers, as students at university, or those considering maybe making career changes, there's a lot of uncertainty. And we always know that we can reach out to wonderful friends of Golden Key who can help us in these uncertain times to educate us in our journey of lifelong learning. This is a part of our Golden Key Talk series where we reach out to industry thought leaders and experts on various subjects, and we are thrilled today to have Dr. Kathy Burton present our Golden Key Talk today. Kathy is a Senior Director of Leadership Development for Robert Half. She's been with the organization for 21 years and has over 25 years of experience in the training and development industry. She has certified multiple leadership development assessments and workshops and has her executive coaching license and manages Robert's Half Global Coaching and Mentoring Program. She has a Bachelor of Arts in Organizational Communication, a master's degree in Small Group and Interpersonal Communication, and a doctorate degree for Human Development and Executive Coaching. So without further ado, Kathy, I am thrilled to welcome you today on behalf of Golden Key, and we can't wait to learn from you today.
Well, Melissa, thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for joining. I'm excited to be able to have hopefully what will be a fruitful and insightful discussion for you all. And so before we launch into the actual program itself and discussing the future of work, I think I want to do a little bit of context or a level set. We are by no far stretch claiming to have all of the answers to the future of work. And so I just want to put that out there, because if I did have all the answers, I probably would be a very wealthy woman. But one of the things that I do want to encourage us to do is that as we go through this session, I want to call out on the very bottom of the screen here, you're going to see a Q&A icon. And what I would like for you to do is I'd like for you, as we go through the session, of if anything crosses your mind, whether we can answer it at the end or if I need to follow back up with anybody, I'm happy to do that. But I just want to make sure that you feel as though this is your session as much as anything else. So I want to make sure that you get all of your answers to your questions and that we can provide as much support and insight as we possibly can. The intention for our time together today is for me to provide you with some thought-provoking and some questions, some perspectives that might get you thinking in a different way. Because I think if it's one thing that this whole situation has taught us, is that we are very resilient, we are very adaptable, we can be extremely agile, as uncomfortable as it can be at times. But I think the historical rate in which we within organizations or just as humans have gone through change. We've debated it, we've talked about it, we've planned for it. If you think about all the change management plans, all the communication plans, guess what? COVID didn't come with one. And we all came out okay. I think about our organization, and we had thousands, tens, 20,000 people all around the globe that almost overnight went to working remote. And so the level of agility and adaptability and resilience that we all had as an organization was unbelievable. And so while I want to make sure that we look at what's important for you through this topic, I think the biggest piece is just overall health and sustainability of your role, your organization, you as an employee, you as a contributor to our overall community and our organization's health. So let's go ahead and get into this. So I don't know, Melissa, if you want me to share the deck or if that's something that you'll be launching.
If you don't mind, if you have it to share, that would be fantastic. I don't have that loaded,
okay.
but I can do that.
Let me find that really quickly. That was
No. I've got the PDF. I could share my screen. Hang on one second. If you guys will give me my apologies. All right. We're always adapting, right?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. And so, one of the things that I do think is very key through this whole thing is mindset. So, if you think of your own mindset, you think about the way you go about things, I think it is extraordinarily important for all of us to understand that what you look for is what you will see in any situation. And so your mindset and the way that you go about it will predict your actions, your thoughts, your behaviors. So as we go through this, I think one of the biggest lessons that I've learned going through a lot of this is that as we talk about change and technology and all of the different platforms and doing things over Zoom like this and adapting on the fly and those type of things, I think it's very interesting about, we could take this situation, for example, and people could freeze up and go, oh, technology and this and that, da, da, da. And you know what? We're all human. And everyone has a level of ambition and a level of almost compassion towards people to say, oh, well, how are we going to do this? And how are we going to take care of that? It's all about mindset and it's all about the attitude. So I'll just put that out there as a lens. So when we start to look at, Colin Mooney is our Chief Digital Officer for Robert Half. And I find this quote extraordinarily interesting. The work in future won't be defined or confined by a role or a job title. It will be based largely on people's increased ability to apply their own unique skill set of skills, knowledge, and talent to their work. So when we start to think about this, in May 2019, Robert Half revealed some research. And that research was around which technologies, from a business expert's perspective, were identified to be most disruptive. So what was going to be most disruptive to the workplace in the next 5 years? That was the question. And despite level of growing momentum behind artificial intelligence, technology, automation, cloud computing, anything along those lines, what was very clear that came out of this research was that there was the most advanced technology by itself will never replicate the results possible if by a human alone. So when everyone gets very worried that technology and robots and things like that are going to take over, we always need the human to be the most disruptive mindset, the one that has the ability to critically analyze things, the ability to make judgment and drive decisions and those type of things. So I find it very interesting that there is very little definition or confinement that will come, and that we as humans are the ones who are the most disruptive. We will drive that future of work. We will drive the decisions to accelerate our current state. I think the future is here much sooner than any of us thought it would be, given where we're at today. And I think one of the big things for today is for us to understand a very key partnership, or what I would call an interdependency. And that interdependency for the future of work relies in three different categories. It's going to be people, process, and technology. And so if we stop and think about this, while human behavior is extraordinarily complex, it can be pretty simple at times. So if we want to step back and we want to think about remaining competitive, either personally or from an organization perspective, that we really do define that competitiveness in three different lenses. And McKinsey put out some research not too long ago, and they basically were saying that if we can address people's needs and examine the processes and technology and put those in place with structures so that people can be maximize their efficiency, their effectiveness, their impact can be maximized, the relationship and the interdependency of all of those will lead to overall sustained success. If we think about people, any of us, it's a learned behavior. We are humans. We are habitual beings. And so when you start to think about even your teams, we got very comfortable. Get up in the morning, we get in the car, we drive, we get our coffee, we go in the office, we meet with the same people, we go to the gym after work, we get in the car, we drive home, we call in dinner, we pick up dinner, whatever it may be. But it was this kind of learned routine that we got into. And then all of a sudden, everyone is now shelter in place, working from home, pets, children, daycare, schools, spouses, sharing bandwidth, video conferencing, making sure that you're rearranging your home office like I did, kicking my husband out of his desk so that we can all adapt. So if you think about people and themselves and how we can make sure that we're investing the time and the energy to be able to provide their level of safety, belonging, and mattering. Again, humans are fairly complex, but they're also very simple. We all need three things. And if you're feeling a reaction, if you personally are feeling tension, if you're uncomfortable, it usually is because one of the three, safety, belonging, and mattering, are put at risk. That you want to feel safe, financial security, that you want security within making sure that you have a home, making sure that you have financing, those type of things. Belonging is, what I'm doing matter? Are the people that I'm doing it with every day, do they care if I'm there or if I'm not? Do I belong to this culture? And then matter. Am I doing work that has purpose? Am I doing work that truly genuinely matters and aligns with what my core values are, what I deem as important? So when you think about your people, how are we, I guess, tending to them? How are we making sure that their needs are met so they can meet the needs that we have as an organization? Our processes. Now, processes, people go, we have processes, we have procedures, we have guidelines. That's all fine and good. Having that said, does it help you conduct business as efficiently and effectively with the least amount of resistance possible? So if you step back and you look at your processes, again, are we falling into some of that habitual, adopted historical behavior, or could some of our processes be examined? From a technology perspective, the entire world has become Zoom, Team, Skype experts. We are seeing 70-something-year-olds using FaceTime for some of the first times because they can't see their grandchildren. So if you really start to think about the technology and it genuinely has become the lifeblood for so many of us in so many ways. But if we're going to be able to continue to have a sustained growth in the future of work, we need to make an intentional shift. And that intentional shift is in three different categories. But before I get there, the one thing that I want to ask you guys is, given the description between the people, the process, and the technology, where is your biggest focus at the moment? So I think Melissa's got a poll for us that she can populate. And so right now, if you think about for your business, are you most focused on people? Are you most focused on process or the technology? So go ahead and put in your votes, and we'll have Melissa generate some of these results in just a few seconds. And let's see what we got.
All right, I'll end the poll. There you go. Can you see the results, Kathy? Oh,
I can't.
I have to share them.
There, we got it. Yep. So 55% of you are for people. Okay, so that's very interesting. 31 process and 14 technology. So it sounds like some of us might have our technology house pretty close to an order, which is amazing. And what you'll find is there is a very close tie between the people and the process functions. And so with the people aspect of it, what we're hearing at this point in time is that people are tired. They're a little concerned. They're a little worried. And so what does that necessarily mean? So let's talk a little bit about people and helping them get transitioned into focusing to that future of work. So if we think about this from the lens of what was, what is, and what will be, because what was, as we all know, really is probably never going to be back again. And so helping your teams and yourself even process what was and respecting it and understanding what you learned from it, what it taught you, the knowledge and the experience that you can pull from what was, but more importantly, understanding that what got you here is not going to get you there. So sitting around and pining and hoping for what was may not be your best investment in time, energy, or effort. So I think it's really helpful to understand that letting go of that at times and transitioning away from what was, it can be scary, it can be disorienting. Some of us may be downright frustrated and angry about the fact that we didn't get a choice. It was made for us. But at the end of the day, what I would always say is that's good energy in a bad place. So look at it, respect what it was, take the knowledge and the lessons and the experience that you and the wisdom that you gained from it, and then let's see what we can do with it today and moving forward. So what is what is directly in front of us. And so this is a delicate balance, right? So between what is and what will be. What is everything that's hitting us at the moment. This is us being reactive. This is us being able to be quick and sharp and decisive and focused in the moment for anything that's happening right now, while we're putting one foot into the future of what will be. And what I mean by that is taking a look at what are the patterns and themes, what are the indicators that you're getting that is telling you what is coming. How can you be proactive? How can you see the patterns and themes of today as an indicator for what's going to come tomorrow? So this is really, truly a critical phase, because now is the opportunity for us to be able to intentionally start to shape what we want the future to be and redefine how we want to do our work in the future. So one of the key parts of this is that we have to really respect what was. And so with that, one of the biggest things here is every single one of us, our organization, our team, what we do, it was built on some core foundational values and principles. And some of those in our organization, we call those timeless, right? So some of ours is ethics first and an openness to new ideas and lead by example. So those are timeless. Those are things that we can use as a foundational level of principles to help build the future, because those pieces is what truly makes it's one of those galvanizing pieces of our culture for an organization. So if you sit back and you think about what is it that your organization stands for, what are some of those principles and values that are timeless, that will never change regardless of anything? Really important for you to have clarity around that, because you will always be able to have what I would call a burning platform or a rallying cry around that. People will always find connection through those values and those purposes. We use it as a compass, like that's north on the compass. We know what we're about. We know why we're doing what we're doing. We know what's important to the organization, and we can build on that. So if we take a look at that, then what we need to shift to is what is. And what is has everything to do with what is our leadership agility? You know, you start to, and you see all these questions on the slide, right? How are you adding depth and breadth to the understanding of your environment of today? So are we being a student of the game? Are we truly stepping back in being and letting the environment teach us something instead of us feeling as though we need to control it. That is a level of agility in being able to move back and forth between different perspectives and different lenses. Are you tuning into details and nuances that could inform you? So again, what are those indicators? What are those triggers that are happening today that are giving you insight which what may come tomorrow? How are you assessing the risk from multiple perspectives? This one I love because I always think that I always get that defiant one. I always pick them out because I always say, what do you see? What are we not talking about? What are we not looking at? I'm always looking for people that have a very different perspective or point of view than myself. And so I'm looking for that disruptive thinker, the one that's looking at something a little bit differently. Because if we can step back and listen to learn, because I think 90% of the time when we are in this responding to what is, we may operate in a stress behavior, a stress mindset. When you're in a stress mindset, there are some of us that will react in one of three ways. In fact, all of us will react in one of three ways. One is, do I fight? Do I fly? Or do I freeze? And under stress, if someone comes towards you, you will immediately react. It diminishes your ability to listen, to learn. When you're in a fight mode, you're listening to respond. And you don't learn a lot. You miss a lot. You don't understand what are the nuances. You're not listening for the undercurrent. If you think about the freeze aspect of things, you want someone else to make a decision. You've frozen. You've stopped absorbing information. And then the flight side of things is that you almost retract. You pull away. You almost go into your own world. You minimize any interactions. You minimize discussions. You don't want to ask any questions because you're on information overload. You're shutting down. So when you start to think about this, and your mind is in that stress behavior, you lose a certain level of cognitive ability to use the creative sides of your brain, the full cognitive side of your brain. You lose the ability to analyze things critically. So this is where I would say when we're responding to what is, it's that agility to be able to step back. And what I would say, let the game come to you. You are really starting to listen and observe and look at things at what is really going on, and looking at multiple perspectives and those kind of things. What are you doing to be adaptable to opportunities in the face of ambiguity? Your intuition is a very powerful tool. If you have an intuition that there's an opportunity here, and that if we just did this, or if we just did that, or if maybe I asked this question, don't let the fact that you're in this unpredictable or unprecedented time that everybody keeps talking about, don't let that override your intuition. Don't let that undermine the knowledge or the experience that you have, because you may be the one to come up with what we call the MOB, the moment of brilliance, to be able to get to that future of work. Now, if we're looking at, and you've been able to exhibit this level of flexibility, the next piece here is that we want to talk about the role of responding to that current state. And so what collaboration opportunities exist across the business? The good news is, Melissa read out, we had so many locations from across the globe of who's attending. The beauty of what's happened is that we are interacting with people in so many different places, in so many different ways, from so many different locations and teams. And the opportunity for collaboration at this point in time is genuinely endless. So for those of you that collaborate with your usual team of people, there may be an opportunity across the business that may open up whole new avenues for you. If we talk about what will need to shift in the organizational culture, this is a big one. We had a conversation about this today with our team. And when you're looking at what you want to have happen as an organization and a culture, if we want to have digital transformation, if we want to make sure that we have 100% flexibility, if we want to move to a remote working team, all of those things, there are some things that need to shift in the organizational culture. And to do that, we need to have a shift in the leadership mindset and behavior. Again, talking about interdependencies, they are not independent, they are interdependent. And so if people are thinking, we're going to roll out a whole new technology or a digital strategy, stop and think about what are the leadership behaviors and competencies that need to complement that. Because I think that is a key miss a lot of the times for organizations when we start to think about reimagining the future, is that, well, we're going to do this. Okay, then how are you going to get your humans, your people, to do that? How would greater autonomy enhance decision making? This one's big. If anybody's ever read Daniel Pink, you think about, he has autonomy, mastery, are two of his biggest driving pieces to success. And purpose is his other one. So if you think about autonomy, people will strive, they will work, they will put in that discretionary effort to be able to obtain autonomy. And the speed in which we can move, if people have autonomy to make decisions and can move things forward, it is absolutely astonishing. The one thing that anybody needs for autonomy is trust. And if it's the one thing that I think so many people have struggled with through this entire process, is they have not been able to see, hear, touch, interact with people specifically, and they're having a very difficult time trusting that they are doing what they need to be doing, what they should be doing, how they should be doing it. And so if you, for a minute, think that there may be a trust aspect to your team that could get in your way, now would be the time to address that. The bigger picture, customer experience. At the end of the day, our customer does not care what department you're in. They don't care what team you're on. They don't care how long you've been here, how long you haven't been here, where you came from. It doesn't matter. They just care about their experience. And so if you think about reimagining the future of your work, sometimes it's easier to start with the end in mind and then and think about what is the experience you want your customers to have, and then who are the people you need to do that, what are the processes you need to have in place, and what's the technology you need to support that. Because a lot of the times we think so insularly, we think of what's my function and how do I need to do this and what is the process and technology I need. Well, let me flip that on its head for you and ask the question of what's the process and technology your client needs or your customer needs to have the experience that you want them to have. So with that, let's take a look at the process. So if we look at our process, everyone's got an operating model, everybody's got a process guide. From a long-term perspective, is it the most efficient, effective strategy you possibly can when you think about your process? You think about your supply chain. Does it need to evolve? How could it evolve? I look at going into a process piece for reimagining or revisioning the future. I think about it as if you walk in as if you know nothing. And sometimes it's very interesting if you do get somebody who knows nothing about your business and you ask them, if you were to come in and make sure that my client was going to get X experience, what would be the process or the operating model in which you would recommend? You'll learn something. I can guarantee you, just by asking those 3 questions, you will learn something. I think sometimes when we start to look at reimagining and revisioning our processes, our own knowledge gets in our way. The knowledge is a blessing, when you need to do it, but it's also a curse when you're trying to change it. So if you stop and think about strategically, what are you trying to do? And how can you do that in a way that's going to make sure that you are meeting all of the regulatory compliances, because that's the other thing, we can't cut any corners, and that we continue to evolve our practices. A lot of the times too, sometimes ask the people that do the job. That's the other part, is that in situations like this, in getting things organized, that we will go from the top down. And if you think about a pyramid, the top of the pyramid is about, say, 5-10% at most. And that's 5 to 10% of the population. Now, not to insult anybody, because I'm in this boat as well, but sometimes I think I know about 5 to 10% about the actual process that people are doing. So I always say, again, flip it on its head. Turn the pyramid upside down. Put the bulk of the time to listen and learn from the bottom up, to where you can learn from those who do the job. When you start to think about, what is the process I need in my organization to be able to move us forward? So finally, as we all know, technology is the bridge to anything. It is the information highway. It's the only way we can connect these days. And while I know what we did before COVID is that we made do with what we had. It works. It's fine. You know, when technology failed us, when Skype kicked us out of calls, when everybody froze and sounded like Darth Vader, we were like, it's okay. But now it's not okay. And so if we really start to think about, what are the key technology systems that will be the pillars to your success, your advancement, your evolution in the future? Prioritize those, become really clear on those, because it really will become either the one thing that will completely catapult you, or it will become the Achilles heel. Nobody wants to spend any money right now. You say investment, or you say budget, or you say approval, everyone just kind of goes, ugh, they freeze. Now, this is one thing that you may want to take a look at really, really closely, because if you've paused something, can it stay paused? Do you need it? Is it essential? The other thing that we're noticing is that there is a huge opportunity for adaptability for a lot of the technologies that we have. And so we're able to mainstream a lot of these. We're able to have multiple teams use the same platform for multiple different purposes. It's interesting when things get a little tight, how creative people can be with technology. So that is one thing that I would definitely say, again, get with your techies, get with those disruptive thinkers, get with those creative and innovative ones on your team, that you'd be surprised what they can come up with from a technology perspective. I will put my hand up on this one, because the agility of me as a leader to navigate the technology, my entire team would fall out laughing. So this is one thing, is that just be keenly aware of where you have a shortcoming for technology, where it will get in your way. This is some intellectual honesty for all of us around our technological ability to be able to navigate and lead in the future, because this will become an issue if we don't address it, or if we don't get ourselves up to speed. Focusing on both the user and the impact. So we want to make sure that ultimately we're after the impact of the experience of the end user. Collaboration is key. So making sure that you do have a way to collaborate, that you do have a platform in which you can get people connected, because that's the other thing that is very difficult. Going back to what we talked about as far as people, safety, belonging, and mattering. And the only way that they will get that safety or that belonging or that confirmation for mattering is being able to collaborate and connect with people. That's the stage that we're at in the circumstances that we're experiencing, is that people are really struggling to stay connected, stay engaged, stay motivated. As humans, we're pack animals, we're tribe. We need each other. Even though you're an introvert or you're an extrovert, it doesn't matter. We were not meant to exist on our own in isolation. And so the collaboration platform and giving them the capability to do that is excruciatingly important for you to be able to retain and maintain that momentum to make your business successful. So, Melissa, with that, I'll pause for a minute. I know I've given a lot of information. Again, not claiming to have all the answers. I gave a warning that it was going to be thought-provoking and that I was going to giving you some perspectives and things to think about. But I will pause here to see if there's any particular questions that anybody wants to ask. I see that we have some in the Q&A here. I would encourage anybody to drop anything in there that that comes across your mind. I see one here. It says, I was at a Canadian mayor's webinar last night. They were talking about less office jobs. Earlier, I read about the view of China being more economically self-sufficient. How will these play a role? I'm studying sociology. Okay. So a couple different things that I don't know if anybody has seen it recently. There was a very brief YouTube video that was put up by Simon Sinek. I just saw it, I think, a couple weeks ago. And he talked about, the office, less office jobs. And he very much said, I think there is going to be a redefinition of office. I don't think the office will be something that people will come to get work done on a daily basis. But I do think the office will become a place for collaboration, a place for gathering, a place for that connection, that we will never as humans get away from that need to do that. There is a different interaction. There is a different level of chemical combination that happens in people's brains and bodies when they get in a physical environment and start to work and do things and think differently versus just being behind a screen. So when you talk about the view of China being more economically self-sufficient, I think that could be debatable. I don't know if we want to get into the political aspect of things, but I do think that this whole experience has jolted the entire globe to really question what is self-sufficient, because there has been quite a bit around the locking down of specific goods and the rate in which shipping has slowed to, and all of those things. So I do think that regardless if it's China, if it's the US, if it's anywhere, I think the whole debate around self-sufficient, be it economically or be it being able to just support their society as a whole, is I think it really has triggered the entire globe to examine that extremely closely. Don't know if that necessarily answers your question, but I do want to see if I can get on to another one. Since we're living in uncharted waters, do you think that we, where did we go? Where did that one just go? Do you think that the way that we did work will go back to normal when a vaccine is developed, or things will change dramatically? I think that we will start, this is I think, so I'll share with you what I think. I think that we will start to see some hints of normalcy when we have a vaccine. I think people will, there is a very powerful thing as it relates to choice. When people have a choice to work from home or a choice to go to the office, there's a different shift in culture, in feeling and attitude. And so I do think that there will be some normalcy, hints of it, because I think people will want to be with their colleagues and be with their teams and connect and those type of things. Do I think that we will ever see the floods of commuters and gridlock and every single person leaving the house at the same time every day and going for 5 days a week to the same location over and over again? I don't know. I really don't. I think that we are going to start to see a much more balanced way in which people go about things. But that's just my personal opinion. But I do think it has a lot to do with the people of the mental security and the physical safety that comes with a vaccine, that I think you will start to see a bounce back in some of that. But I don't know if we're ever going to see the full 5 days a week, everybody commuting. I don't know if we'll see that. Next question on this one is, one of the greatest challenges right now that has come to light is the lack of digital technology capability of our staff. Do you have any tips for combating this? So there are tons, and I mean, excuse me for saying that in an overly dramatic way, but there are literally tons of instructional YouTube videos. There are, tutorials, or even the help box in Microsoft Word or Excel or anything along those lines. My personal recommendation would be that if you and your leadership team were to sit down and identify what are the top 2 to 3 critical technology knowledge base, foundational knowledge base that you need everybody to have somebody go out, identify some really strong YouTube or instructional videos. If you have, like we have Skillsoft, and so we would be able to go on Skillsoft or LinkedIn Learning or something along those lines. I would curate and catalog a very tidy library of courses that every single person has to go through. And that way you can start to build some foundational knowledge. And then that stage of the game, maybe you have smaller groups that have projects that have to work with some of that technology or anything along those lines. The reason why I say go both routes is because one is, not everybody, you're going to have auditory or visual learners, and not everybody will learn off the video, and not everybody will learn off of the on the job or the project work to actually practice, put into practice that knowledge. So I would definitely prioritize what are the technologies the team needs to know, curate a tidy little consistent knowledge base or catalog that they all need to complete, and then get them into smaller peer groups to help support each other. Because again, safety, belonging, mattering, getting people connected, using the technology, you're hitting multiple kind of ticking a number of boxes, might I say. So that is the one thing that, and the other thing is too, is at the end of the day, you're going to come down to ability and willingness. Ability is that they can do it, they can learn it, there's no problem there. Willingness is, do they want to? And then that's a whole nother conversation if you're having a problem with the desire. One of the next questions here, I answered process in the survey because I do believe people are the same. Technology will advance too as well, but the process, either business or non-business related process, that governs how actually we conduct business might completely change at this time and will be ongoing after this situation. How actually we are going to go forward and what will be permanently changed after this situation. I'm open for more discussion beyond this process, people and technology. So I'm just trying to discern the question here. at this time, how actually are we going to go forward that will be permanently changed after this situation? Well, I think the thing that's going to be permanently changed from a process perspective is I don't think that there's going to be such a trepidation around change. I think if COVID has given us one gift, if it's been the opportunity that it has presented to us, is that it has ripped off the proverbial Band-Aid of change, the fear of change. And so I think that what will permanently change for us is that everyone's ability to basically say, I've survived that. There's a certain level of pride that we've all been able to endure, navigate, adjust, shift, and become agile and adaptable to this. And so I really do think that if one thing will come out of this from a process perspective is that we may not get so mired down or married to some of these processes, that we may actually be able to be truly a little bit more agile in that, and that we may stop and think about that we don't need to get so structured into some things, that maybe having some level of flexibility. We talk a lot in our line of work in polarities. And one of the biggest polarities that organizations two of the biggest polarities that organizations tend to battle is structure and flexibility. And you need both of them. If you are too structured, then it's at the cost of flexibility. And if you're too flexible, it's at the cost of structure. So what's that interdependency, and what's that productive complement of the two? The other one is tradition and origination, like original and tradition. So that it very much goes to some of the same things as far as, do we want to do what we've always done because that's what we've always done? Or do we want to move a little bit more towards the originality, the new, how can we evolve? How can we be innovative? So you need both of them. And if you do one to the detriment of other, then you can start to feel that tension in the organization. So hopefully that answers the questions a little bit, but I do think that the one thing that is going to remain to be our constant is our muscle that we're building around change agility. Let's see. Any additional advice for job seekers recently out of school? So call Robert Half. And I'm not being facetious, but in all honesty, we have some of the most tenured, talented labor consultants in the organization or in the industries that you are ever going to find. And so depending on what your industry is, depending on what your focus is, the beauty of what's going on right now is that there is a tremendous opportunity. There's a window right now in the job market. We have those people that are on we have a lot of stimulus programs. The governments have been overwhelmingly generous. And that has been great for some that have to stay home, or caregivers or childcare or anything along those lines. Those that are really wanting to go back to work, they have a huge opportunity to make a name for themselves, because they will show up, they will shine, and they will be able to do the job that some people are deferring to doing because they have these stimulus packages. So there's this very slim window for those of us that are choosing to take the harder road at times. I'm not saying that staying home and childcare and caregiving and all of that is not, that is an unbelievable humanitarian mission there. But what I am saying is, for those of us that have the drive and the capability and the opportunity to go back to work right now and to actually get into organizations and help drive moving them to the future, there is a huge opportunity for people to get in on that, because a lot of these stimulus packages are going to expire soon. And then the market is going to be flooded again and without that stimulus. So there is a huge opportunity right now for those of you that are seeking jobs. All right, so another question here. How do you think that the interplay of consultant gig, economy short-term flex work, and the structure of economy being reliant on the long-term reliable full-time work model? An example of this, people not being able to get mortgages when they were part-time or have their own businesses. So this one's a little difficult. Yeah, the short-term and flex side of where we're at is, I think everyone is very reluctant to have too much flexibility. And so I think a lot of people are going for that longer term, reliable, full-time work model because psychologically it indicates structure, it indicates safety, it's stability. And so I do think that when we're starting to think about that part-time work, that flex, or even that consulting side of things, that automatically triggers some people to be somewhat reluctant. But the other thing is too, is that if it's the right project, because that's the other thing, is if you start to think about project work, you start to think about taking something from the beginning to the end, but it's just not forever and ever, then I think when you start to think of things in complete units of work and you're able to speak to the client or the employer or the company in complete units of work, it will help trigger that psychological stability around getting something done and being able to have measurable progress and impact. So I think that may help with some of that. Let's see, what's our next one here? How do you reimagine leadership development over the next few years? Key focus areas. Okay, so interesting. We just had this conversation. We've been having it, not just had it, but we've been having it. One of the biggest things that we're talking about is that there is going to be a whole nother level of leadership mindset and leadership behaviors that are going to lead to competencies and skill sets for people to be successful in kind of that new normal. If I start to think about how we would go about that, it would be people's self-awareness, their emotional intelligence, their ability to build trust, because again, virtually you need to be able to have that trust. How are they from a communication perspective? How can they deliver a message? Can they give performance feedback without a crushing blow? Can they do it with compassion? But can they hold people accountable but be human? And so it's becoming this very delicate balance of the people, the art, and the science of being a leader. You need to be well organized. You need to know the technology. You need to have strong processes in place from an accountability perspective, but then you need to have the leadership mindset, the behaviors, and the capabilities to do all of that. So the future of leadership development is going to require a certain level of depth and complexity from a human aspect as well as a business aspect. Sound judgment, being able to analyze critically, those are all going to be higher priority competencies and skills moving forward. Now, if I'm to think of deployment, how we would do it, how we would deliver it, it's going to be my biggest niggle at the moment is that everybody is making these big sweeping statements saying everything's going to be virtual. We're going to do everything online. We're going to do everything through Zoom. We're going to do everything through, and that's unrealistic because you have to pick the right content for the right channel, for the right audience. There are some things that you can convey because it's information, it's a lesson, it's a theory, it's a framework, but then you need to give people the human aspect of experiencing it and practicing it. So it's balance is how I would say we're going to deliver it. Let's see. From what you've presented, it looks like the future of work is in the hands of the top level decision makers to think of things, these things. Do you feel the majority of companies and their older managers will want to reckon with these questions? Really interesting question. And to be honest, I don't necessarily agree that it belongs in the hands of the top leadership. I honestly think that the top leadership are the ones that should open up the channels of communication to hear from everybody. But that's my personal opinion. There have been some leaders in some organizations, and in fact, at Robert Half, we've received plenty of C-suite level positions that have opened up because some of the managers and senior leadership just are like, this is beyond my era, my capability, my skill set, my mindset. So they're letting that next generation step up because they do have this skill set. They do have the energy, the resilience, and the agility from a technology and an approach perspective to do that. So, I do think that some of them, and I think some of them are very excited by it. I think some of them love the opportunity to reimagine, redefine, revision. They love it. It's just same thing with change. You're going to have people that love change and then people that are resistant to change. So it just depends on who that leader is and where they want to go with it. India is facing the issue of unemployment amongst migrant workforce amidst COVID situation. Do their poverty issues, they don't have access and affordability to technology. What could be the process to ensure their sustainability during these times? That's a really good question. At this stage, there are so many public programs, and a lot of the governments are helping, and there are a number of global organizations that are charity based and that are nonprofits that actually help with a lot of these things. So if this is something that you truly are passionate about, then, and you have the accessibility to do a couple Google searches or reach out to a couple people, then I would definitely take a look at that, because there are a lot of people that are shifting to doing community-based, humanitarian-based global support work. There are a ton of the technology organizations that are behind this. In fact, I just was on a webinar over the weekend, and it was for an organization. It was a CEO from Sun Microsystems, and he has started a free platform for universities and schools called Curriki, and they can go on, it's the actual platform itself. You can go on and customize your content, and then the teachers can deploy it to their classrooms. So there are so many organizations and so many avenues out there that people can definitely find a way to help get some accessibility to this technology. Do you have tips for gaining the trust of leaders to move up to the ladder after isolation? There is a book that I love that is called The Speed of Trust by Stephen Covey. He talks about trust being built in either character or competence. And he talks about it in a way that really does help people understand how trust is built and how trust is torn down. But it also makes an amazing business case of how businesses can move at such a faster rate and such a more profitable rate and much more efficient and effective if trust is an element in their organization. Because if you trust somebody, you're not going to sit here and question them. You're not going to double check. You're not going to cover your rear end. You're not going to do all of those kind of things. And so business moves so much faster when there's trust in play. So I would definitely check that one out, because that one it's pretty fail safe. Melissa, how are we doing on time? We
Yes,
have
actually,
this.
I just wanted to jump in and respect your time, of course. Maybe we find, let me dig through here. I'll find one more question. I thought this was an interesting when you spoke about future skill sets, and you've mentioned some critical thinking. Are there some others, that as we have members online that are either looking to grow in their career, change their career, coming out of university, what
Mhm.
other skills do you mention? Or do you think in this future
Yeah.
place?
I would, the core to a lot of people's success, or the derailer to a lot of people's success, could be self-awareness and emotional
Mm,
intelligence. Self-awareness is defined as you view me as others, or no, I view myself as others do. And so I'm keenly aware of how my behaviors impact you.
mhm.
That the intent that I set out to in a conversation or an interaction with you is exactly how you feel leaving that conversation. That's self-awareness. And what that tells me is that I'm not concerned about my agenda. I'm not concerned about me during the conversation, that I'm genuinely interested in looking at, Melissa, what you're bringing is equal to what I'm bringing.
Mhm.
And so there's none of this one up, one down kind of agenda, politics, anything along those lines. That's what self-awareness is.
Mhm.
The other thing is emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is the way in which you can read the room,
Right.
that you can sense how somebody else is feeling, that you are respecting how somebody else is feeling, or that you are looking at and seeing how they're responding and gauging that so you can adjust your delivery or your approach.
Sure.
So those two, and the reason why I bring those two up is because in a technology world, with everybody living off of these,
Mhm.
we have WhatsApps, we have Snapchat, we have, we have FaceTime, we have texting, we have this, we have that. That is not helping you build emotional intelligence or self-awareness.
Mm,
That's not communication.
mhm.
In the professional environment and in the professional setting, your ability to articulate, convey your messages, present your ideas will ultimately be what will either advance your career or derail your career.
Mhm.
So, in short, those are the two things that I would say are going to be that's your money bet.
Sure. Gosh, those sound like two great topics for future Golden Key Talks. Kathy, I want to thank you so much for taking time to join us today. I've made a few notes, as you talked about, even in this state of crisis and uncertainty, it is amazing to be able to connect and collaborate and engage with each other through these opportunities. I wrote down a few things that I think no matter where any of us are, if you're still pursuing your degree, going back for a degree or many years out into the workforce, using our tuition and this opportunity to embrace certainty, to be uncertainty, to be agile throughout this, and listen to learn. I think if any of us can walk away today and truly be purposeful when we communicate, and truly listen to learn and listen to those who do the job,
Mm-hmm.
because we all certainly can't know everything. I do want to say I think Robert Half's MOB, or their moment of brilliance, was recognizing your talent in sharing this and just the many wisdoms that you've imparted. And I'll give a shout out to our team in Sydney, Australia, too, our Golden Key team, who was able to connect with you to share just all of this amazing content together and really get us thinking. If you could, I think you can see the Q&A board, and I think we could go on for many hours
Yeah.
picking your brain. So on behalf of our organization, on behalf of Golden Key and our members around the world, I just want to thank you for taking time to help us continue our journey of lifelong learning and applying these to our personal and professional life. So thank you so much, Kathy.
You're so welcome. Pleasure was all mine. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And to everyone that's joined us, we appreciate you either staying up very late. Someone just mentioned it was 2 a.m. where they are.
Oh,
Others
good
of
Lord.
you, yeah, but they said, I'm so glad I stayed up until 2 to
Oh,
listen.
good.
It was so helpful. And I hope you can see in the chat how appreciative our members are. To those of you starting your day, we wish you, I hope you have a wonderful day and evening to those of you here in North America. So thanks to everyone again. And we look forward to hosting you soon on our next Golden Key Talk.
Thank
All right.
you.
Take care, Kathy. Bye-bye.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.
Right,